I would ask is just tag my YouTube
so
channel.
the recording started. Rick, my pleasure to meet you today on the main Zoom room of Constitutional Convention. I know that you are from England, so thank you so much to be here. So please tell us what happens in England.
Well, I'm it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for having me, Beatrice. It's amazing to be working with other people in other countries. We've all been subject to the same fundamental fraud that's been committed at an institutional and constitutional level from our very birth. And what I was just discussing with Beatrice was this idea that, unfortunately, because of so much indoctrination that has gone on in our society and in the world as a whole, most people do not live a lawful, naturally lawful life. And many of us, and I even find myself checking my own behavior on a daily basis and realizing where I am, I've been indoctrinated to infringe other people's sovereignty, even in very, very minor ways. But in that realization, people have to be willing to hold their hands up and say that I have been doing things wrong. And as we bring people from this system of maritime law and corporate feudalism into natural, lawful living, we're going to have to be willing to offer amnesty, I think, to an awful lot of the population. Like I say, I think that 90% of the population don't really live truly moral existences. And while we're bringing people from this maritime jurisdiction into lawful land jurisdiction and to natural law, we need to be willing to allow them to be absolved of their previous sins. We're going to have to be willing to offer amnesty to these policemen who have been operating under this maritime jurisdiction. When they come to that moment of realization that what they've been doing is just fundamentally and morally wrong, we're going to have to be able to forgive them. Otherwise, we're going to be left prosecuting 5 billion people on planet Earth, and that is just not feasible. At the same point, while we're making this offer of amnesty to people, as you come into land jurisdiction, as you step out of maritime jurisdiction, you are absolved of your, previous crimes. There has to also come a point where we draw a line and we say, no more, you've had your opportunity. At this point now, anybody who is still operating under this system of corporate law and is operating under the system of maritime law and defrauding people with it, you are now going to pay for your crimes. And I don't care whether you're a politician, whether you're a monarch, whether you're a doctor or a teacher, at this point, it's too late. You have had your opportunity to absolve yourself, and now is the time of judgment. We are now on the land. We are now in a position where we can, come and arrest you because we've got our own, police forces, and we're sick of you operating as pirates on our land. Because this is the land. This is not the ocean, and you're treating it like the sea. You're invading people like pirates and defrauding and robbing and stealing, and we won't have it anymore. So all I'm saying is that we're going to have to be willing to forgive an awful lot of people when they have that moment of realization. There's a lot of people that are going to need a lot of healing, and there's a lot of people that are going to need this opportunity to recover from the crimes and the wounds of past lives, so to speak. And that's really all I wanted to say, just this idea of, us being aware of the amnesty that we're going to have to offer to a lot of people when they come to that realization, provided they are willing to step into their own sovereignty and take full responsibility for their actions from here on forth.
Yeah, the problem that I can see is that the natural law was hijacked in 1665. So many of us, all of us, we are born after. And we never know, we never experience the natural law. And we still cannot understand that we do not respect the truth and we are not moral, because being moral is to live in balance with the nature and the natural law. We cannot understand that. So we are brainwashed, and we need education. And it's still a huge problem, and this is in every country, not only here in so-called Canada. Right now, you experience the same situation in England, and everything practically they enslave us through the system, through the monetary system and through the law. And This happens in every country. And I do not know exactly what is the situation in England with the constitution. But here in, first of all, we have not a country. Canada is not a country, and we have not a constitution. And generally speaking, the people investigation, because the people started to investigate. So the constitution were written by Freemason. And right now they started to come and to say what happened inside of these secret societies. So it's nothing related to our creator. Then we can understand very well that they enslave us through the law and everything. Man, they never inserted the natural law inside of the constitution. And even that they inserted, for example, in some countries, words like republic or sovereignty, they are only the words on the paper, because the real sovereignty is when through the constitution your authority is recognized, that we recognize above us only our creator, then we are above the constitution and the government. Practically, we are the government, because all of us are the decision makers and will vote for every important decision. And practically our government has for sure a say, but they are also sovereign. They will vote for sure, but the outcome they have to respect the sovereign outcome. Then they will apply yes or no. So this is not working. What can I say? Not in England, not in so-called Canada. Right now, I know more about Australia. I started to know also about United States because I lived there for 4 years. And it's practically, it seems to be worldwide. And they apply the same mechanism, and it's a pyramid system. And on the top, we have, I said on a video, 1%, but they are extremely, they are even not 1%. They are 0.001, or some people recognize only 5 or only 10. So why we should have experienced everything that we experience today? We are living in a very rich earth, and many people are poor. Why only extremely few can have this access to the resources and to use the resources for them, or do not let us to use the resources for us and are keeping us enslaved? So why we need to recognize all the time them is just because they changed everything many years ago, and even that we were born and our parents were born, then nobody started to understand, and we just started to discover what they did, and we try to fix through the constitution.
Yeah.
So, please tell me more about the Constitution of England, if you know, and what really happened there. What kind of the law do you experience there? Is the common law?
This has been a real tough topic for me to research when it comes to particularly things that have gone on in England. So I mentioned to you earlier in this chat, I've been following the work of Anna von Reitz an awful lot. But she's been rolling back the American Constitution to the original founding documents and what the founding fathers originally intended it to be, which was a republic. And for any of those out there who don't know the difference between a republic and any other form of democratic government, a republic is primary goal is to hold the individual sovereignty of all the nationals as prime. That is the most important thing in a republican government, because what it recognizes is that the individual is the foundational building block of society, and for society to function correctly, that individual has to be protected. Yes. By protecting all those individuals and allow them to remain sovereign within their own boundaries, in the same way a cell in your body is not interfered with by the greater body. It exists as part of the greater structure, but is sovereign. Only that cell controls what goes on within the walls of the cell itself. That is how you get a truly well-functioning society, because it allows everybody to find their true purpose and to excel in what it is that they're good at in their lives, because it gives them that opportunity to explore freely the world and explore themselves and discover who they really are. Now, our ancient laws actually go back to pre-Christ, we're looking at some of our original ancient laws called the Mamertine laws, which go all the way back to around about 500 BC. And there's actually evidence of sophisticated civilization in Britain a lot older than that. For example, Stonehenge is 2,500 years old. And to put that in perspective, you're looking at about 40 million man hours that were taken to build that. So there's no society of barbarians that is investing 40 million man hours into putting together a structure like that. That is, the work of a sophisticated society, which has logistics and it has planning, and it's a cohesive unit. You've not got warring tribes here. They just simply aren't capable of building megalithic structures with 40-ton stones. It's not possible. Barbarians don't build megaliths. So ultimately, our ancient law goes back very, very far, and due to the influence of Rome and the Roman Catholic Church, and all the corporate entities which have then come out of the Roman Catholic Church, and the way they've interfered with our educational system, they've interfered with everything in our society since 500 AD thereabouts. We're looking at the times when Rome started to really get its teeth into England. A lot of our ancient law has been lost, and a lot of it has been hidden, and a lot of it has been misinterpreted and erased, and some of our history has even been turned into myth. The whole idea of King Arthur being a myth. No, there was an actual real King Arthur. In fact, there were two of them, and the legend that we know now was based on those two historical kings of Britain, which existed long before the Romans even set foot on these isles. Ultimately, our written constitution goes back to the Magna Carta in 1217, 1225. There was numerous reiterations of Magna Carta. There was also an associated document, which an awful lot of people don't know. And that associated document was called the Charter of the Forest. And this is a particularly interesting document because it makes a very clear difference between the idea of a man and the idea of a person. There's a line in there which says that no man may be brought before the courts of the forest unless he is sureties for a person attached for forest offences. So this is starting to give the idea of someone holding the office of personhood rather than being a living man or woman. And this is the first time I saw in the English Constitution this differentiation between the man, the living, breathing entity, or woman. When I say man, I don't mean man, I mean man as in mankind, and the person, which is the legal office. So a lot of people get confused in this. You could say a teacher is an office of personhood. It is a role that you accept, but the man is different to the teacher. The teacher is the role. You might have a science teacher in a school. The science teacher is the office, and the man who fulfills that role is the living being. Yeah, they're two different things, and you can operate either as a living man or you can operate in your capacity of person. And this comes again to do with the responsibilities that you're taking on and things like that. And that's the first real mention that I've ever seen of it. And it hints to a time when there were people who lived outside the traditional statutes and law, because it says there, a man may not be brought before the courts of the forest. And the forest was the royal lands. So this is the idea of the royal courts. If you weren't holding an office of royal personhood, if you weren't a baron, you didn't hold a title, you weren't directly bequeathed to the queen or the king, then you were a man, you were a free man, and you were not subject to that law. You just had to be known to be a free man. So that's where the root of our constitution actually comes up to. And there's an awful lot of confusion and debate and conflict over what exactly happened at that particular point in our history. There was a king that came onto the throne who was never really intended to be king, was never really prepared for it, and was never expected to take the throne, but due to circumstances he ended up in this position. And basically he tried to usurp our existing government, which at the time was a system of barony. So you had landlords who owned the land, who held the land on behalf of the king or the queen, and would be responsible for collecting taxes from the populace who lived on the land. And basically the people on the land would declare fealty to the Lord, and the Lord declared fealty to the king. And that was your system. If you had an issue with the way the country was being run, you went to see the Lord on whose land you lived and to who you paid taxes. And if you didn't like how he was running things, you could pack off his land and become a free man and go and live on the common lands. You didn't have to live under barony. That was an option that was available to you. So when you look into actual real ancient British governance, there were two very, very different types of people. There were serfs, who were people who lived on the lands of the lords, and a lot of them did it quite willingly. They liked the fact that the lord was managing the system and, you know, protected them from roving bandits or whatever, and, you know, they were quite happy with that. But again, there were people who chose to live outside of that, and you were allowed to do that. That was recognized in our constitution, and these were the free men. These were the people who existed under land law, under natural law, not under the statute law of the barons and of the crown. The freemen actually recognized that having a king was important, because if someone invaded, you want a commander-in-chief who's going to marshal the army and bring it together and organize everything, and you don't want to be messing about when the barbarians are already on your shores invading. You want to be prepared. So having a king was important. So they recognized the right of the, you know, the role of the king, but they didn't live directly underneath their rules. And they reserved the right to evict the king and to disafforest his lands. It actually says that in the Charter of the Forest as well. When viewed by 12 good and lawful men, we may disafforest any land held by the king, basically. So we can take back that land from you. Know that you only have this because we let you have it, because we're the people on the land. And if we don't think you're doing a good job, we will kick you off. And that goes all the way back to, you know, the 13th century, 1225, thereabouts. There's an awful lot of messing that goes on beyond that, where the Catholic Church get increasingly involved in our government, because at that time, religion and government were very, very closely tied. They were, you know, it was a much more apparent part of daily life. So people considered it important that people paid the proper attention to the Lord, and this is why we have so many, you know, different religious wars over the many, many years. But we had a big turnaround in around the 1600s as well, where there was an awful lot of crown corporations created, and this is the beginning of the British Empire era. This is when the East India Company was created, and when we had one of our biggest, two really big civil wars, in fact, almost back to back over 50 years. And for a brief period, I've discovered, believe it or not, Britain was actually a republic. And this is where the idea of the Commonwealth has come from. And this is where the idea of a lot of the supposed independence of places like Australia and New Zealand and Canada comes from. Because Oliver Cromwell wanted to set up a republic whereby every single nation was sovereign within its own boundaries, that they all agreed to operate together as a union of the Commonwealth. Now, this idea of the Commonwealth was again later co-opted by the Crown and then incorporated back into the whole toxic system. But the idea of the Commonwealth originally was that it was supposed to be a republic, which protected individual liberty and advocated for a complete separation of religion from governance. It was a Puritan revolution whereby people said that you should be able to worship God any way you like. You shouldn't be restricted to doing it either a Protestant way or a Catholic way or an Anglican way, or however. You should be free to, you know, respect the Creator however you want, and you should be sovereign within your own boundaries. Now, due to various forces, that never actually happened, and the whole system ended up falling apart. We ended up putting a monarch back on the throne, and I'm just starting to try and get my head around exactly how that's all occurred. But long story short, Beatrice, British history is an absolute mess, because a lot of the corporate slavery that is happening all around the world was prototyped right here on English soil and then exported the world over.
Yeah. This is extremely interesting, and thank you so much to clarify this, because also the people they come, they are not even able to understand here person versus man and woman, and because they start to read our constitution, their first question is why we are sovereign men and women, and we are not sovereign person because we are persons. So this is one of the discussion that we have all the time here. And also, you know, the people they are
born men and women. That's what we are born. We are born one of two genders, and I know that's going to trigger a lot of people out there, but I'm sorry, but it's true.
Yes. So it's about the indoctrination. So when, you know, it's like it's incredible, you know, to come from the East Europe and to be inside of a country, and after that, after you are living here for years and you have a lot of questions, that you understand that everything is a fraud, and after that you discover Constitutional Convention, and after that you discover Parris that is speaking today, and it's telling everything started in England, so everything started in Europe. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So as I understand it, basically the fingers of Rome, when they were driven back and they didn't have their military might anymore, they adopted religious might, and the Pope basically became the de facto international authority. A lot of Europe was, you know, predominantly Catholic. They followed the Roman Catholic religion, which I believe, and this is fairly recent information I've come into over the last year or so, the original Christianity actually came from England, from Britain. It was taken to Rome from Britain, and the Romans were kicked out of Britain about 200 years earlier than we say they were, and it was the Britons that sacked Rome. It wasn't anyone else. It was the Britons that turned around and sacked Rome, and we brought Christianity to Rome. They then co-opted it and exported it the world over under Catholicism, and used that as their way of controlling world politics. Because in ancient politics, if you wanted your rulership to have any weight on an international stage, you had to have approval from the Pope. If he didn't ratify your rule, that was carte blanche for any warlord anywhere across the world to come and knock on at your door and invade your shores. And this happened time and time again under British history, where there was conflict, because we've been subjugated and invaded for, you know, the last 1500 years by Romans and French and God knows who else. There's always been, you know, issues when it's come to inheritance in this nation, because our original bloodline was completely cut off. It was, you know, replaced with a foreign bloodline, French bloodline originally, and then later German bloodlines. Because I'm not sure if anybody out there knows, but the Queen is actually Saxe-Coburg.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is.
She's actually a German, right?
Yes, she is.
Can I ask you a quick question, Rick?
Yeah, of course you can.
What's your thought on the Bolshevik Jews?
Oh, the Bolsheviks! I've only just really started getting my head around a lot of what's going on. I think that these families basically have operated through various different religious institutions. It's not just Rome. We've seen Rome mainly in the Western world, but if you look through the Islamic world, a lot of that has been ruled by, you know, higher up Islamic people, and there's definitely influence of certain Jewish nations and Jewish influences there as well. I think, you know, a lot of religion has been co-opted at the base level.
And then if I could ask you, what's your take or thoughts on the Masons?
On the Masons, again, that's just another one of the fraternal societies that's been used throughout history to keep knowledge and to develop connections between people. It's just another derivative of what's ultimately come out of Rome, and the unholy alliance between the Roman Catholic Church, certain higher ups in, you know, the Islamic Church, and the same in the Jewish Church. I think they're all working together.
And I'm going to continue on, if I may, brother. The
Of course, man.
Jesuits.
The
The
Jesuits.
Jesuits.
It's all part of the same scam. They've basically, you've got the same demons with different names and different faces, and it's all varying levels of actual understanding of the greater whole. There's a very small handful of people which have known the plan, and these are families, I believe it's 13 fundamental families, which have passed on this knowledge of their greater whole, the slavery of humanity. They've passed this year on year through their families, and then there's various entities which have been controlled beyond that, which have a little bit less knowledge, and then a little bit less knowledge. It's like the pyramid that we always see. You know, small number of people at the top controlling another layer below, who control a bigger layer below, a bigger layer below. And the higher up the pyramid you go, the greater the knowledge of the whole scam. And the lower down the pyramid you go, the less the knowledge of the whole scam. But I think it's, you know, it's all ultimately come out of ancient religion for sure.
So now, brother, I know I've heard your voice before, and actually I got kind of goosebumps right now with listening to you speak. I know I've heard you before. I've seen either a live of yours or a video of yours, and I know I recognize your voice. And
I run the Standby for the Conscious YouTube channel.
Yeah, okay.
So you might have seen me on either YouTube. I'm on YouTube and BitChute, and I'm on what's the other one as well? I can't remember off the top of my head. Brand YouTube as well.
So then a couple more questions, if I may. I want to pick your brain. I'm sorry I got here late, and maybe you've already mentioned this, but what's your take on, let's say yesterday, March 20th, the worldwide rally that went on across. I've seen many videos from different nations. We had a fairly good event in Toronto, Canada, nowhere near what I've seen throughout Europe. But what's your thoughts on that? And what do you think is going to move us forward? Because, like, you know, when we look at our challenges, it doesn't matter what nation you're in. We're all fighting the same evil. And I say it over and over again when I'm on these Zoom meetings, that, you know, you've mentioned like 1,500 years. We have been fighting the wrong enemy. We've never truly identified our true enemy. We've been false world wars and revolutions and everything. And we've always been played like pawns. And I always say that the year 2021 is the year that we are going to truly, the world, the sovereigns around the world are going to truly identify who their enemy is. And we're going to rise up and we're going to stand against that true enemy, the root of all evil, and we're going to exterminate them. What's your thoughts, brother?
Well, ultimately, I think our biggest enemy is ourselves and passivity, because these parasites have operated on our tacit agreement, which is agreement by silence. That's all they've done. Okay. Yep. And when it comes to rallies and protests and things like that, I love the energy. You know, when I first started in my journey of activism, one of the first things I started doing was going to the million mass marches, and I got involved quite heavily in, you know, in the direct action of some people who were associated with the anonymous movement, various things like that. And I absolutely love the energy there. I think they're a great way for people to connect. But ultimately, for me, it's like protesting to your cleaner rather than sacking them. Mm-hmm. And if 1,000, you know, if 1 million people can turn up at a march, if 1,000 people can turn up at a march, 1,000 people can start organizing their own system of government. The cleaners are doing a shit job. Let's just clean our own house. I've got the dishes. Yeah, mm-hmm. You go over the carpets. Someone else wipe the windows. Somebody else go and clean the toilet. Yes. We know what jobs need to be done. Let's just go and do them. It's really simple, guys. We already fix all the roads.
Wow.
Hallelujah. Yes.
We already build all the houses.
I've been trying to say that all along, Rick. Wow.
We do it anyway. We have the internet now. we can just sort our own shit out. It is, pardon my French, I get really passionate when I start talking about this.
But the
But
problem
it's as simple as that. We do it all anyway. All these people do is feed us shit, keep us in the dark, and take our money.
Okay, I have my
Exactly.
final question for you, my brother, and I'll yield back.
Go for it. Go for
How
it.
the hell did you find this page, this Zoom room?
How the hell did I find this page? That's a great question. Thank you, because it gives me the opportunity to draw your attention to a little project that myself and a few of my friends have been running for the last 5 years or so. It's a website called lawfulbank.com. It's originally given that name because we realized that ultimately with building our own government comes building our own system of trade and therefore having our own form of currency. Because barter only gets you so far. We need some way of recognizing when people have done work and being credited for that. And then they need to be able to trade that credit with other people who are also willing to do good work. Anyway, Lawful Bank is like a traditional forum stroke social media platform. It's very basic. We've been paying for it out of our own pockets. I say we, there's one guy who's been paying £60 a year out of his own pocket for the last 5 years to keep the site running. And there's loads of really amazing people on there who are trying to do just that. I was reached out to, someone from the Constitutional Convention.
Yep, I actually
Dallas,
got your email, Rick. It
Dallas
was
reached out
Dallas
to
who
me.
reached out to you,
Yeah,
and I saw your
and
emails. Now I know where you belong.
yeah,
Okay.
and that's how I got in touch with you guys. I did email Dallas back, but I've heard that Unify the People email has been hacked, so I've been given an alternative. I'm not sure if that's the case or
Yeah,
not.
it's
But
the Traveling
that is
Truth
the
Tour
case.
now.
yeah, okay, so
Yeah,
that's
well, the
fantastic.
email,
I'll
yeah.
get in touch with you guys via that. And yeah, I had a look at your site and I thought, wow, you guys have got regular Zoom meetings up. That's a fantastic idea. And, you know, as I start getting more people onto the land and soil in Britain and people understanding exactly how the fraud works and how we get ourselves out of it, I'm planning on setting up these regular Zoom meetings myself for each and every one of our nations and our counties as well, because our counties go back 1,000 years nearly as well.
That's
I
right.
got goosebumps, brother. I got goosebumps. I really do. And let me tell you something. I truly believe in my heart that in order to achieve what we, the sovereign men and women in every nation, we need to unite. We need to unite under common ground, the common cause, and it has to be worldwide. We need to start communicating with our other nations, right?
Yeah.
Because we're divided. That's what's got us to the reality where we are today, because we've been so divided. And if we can unify as a world force, we've got it done, brother. Do you agree?
They're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, Scott, but right now
And
we
it's getting everybody to understand that sorry, Beatrice, you go in.
Yes, so we have a danger also because they try to unify under political party to bring oligarchy just again stronger. So not in this direction, because right now they could be also paid to gather the people there and they gather the people under the freedom protest. This is not freedom. The people have to understand the authority that we have as sovereign. So then by there, then when we discover that, this is the way to follow, there to bring all the people together.
Yeah, you're right, Beatrice. You're very right.
The direction is extremely important because everything that I saw yesterday in Toronto was not at all on the same direction. And everything that is doing right now, Chris Sky, with the Alex John, it's exactly on the opposite direction. So the direction is extremely important because this makes all the difference.
Yeah, for sure. And it's keeping the focus on moving things in that direction. It's very easy to get distracted with a lot of other things that are going on. And I find myself getting distracted with it as well.
With political parties, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And it's, again, it's so easy for people to mistake this for being another form of hierarchy, because one of the biggest issues I found is the moment that you use the G word that is governance or government or anything like that, or anything that even sounds vaguely political, a lot of people will just switch off immediately and say, no, I want to go off into the woods and hug a tree and live in a yurt and cut myself off from society. And you know what, that's great. Like, I don't mind if that's what people want to do. all the power to you, brilliant. But I want to have power when I switch on my lights. I want to be able to turn on my tap and know I've got water. I want to know that there's a mechanic who can repair my car. You know, we've got 200 years of industrial revolution technology here. If we don't put if we don't get our things sorted and start working together, then what we risk is a violent societal collapse, because this system is going to fail one way or the other. It is unsustainable. And we either bring it down in a controlled manner and offer people a lifeboat, or this thing sinks in the middle of the Arctic and we're left floundering in the water and drowning, and we lose all that technology. Because if people start to panic when this system comes down, rather than going, oh, it's all right, there's a group of people who already know how we're going to sort this out, I'll just go and join them. If there's not that safety net when this system does collapse, which it will, because it's unsustainable fundamentally, then we're going to have mass destruction of all this infrastructure. We're going to have riots, we're going to have looting, we're going to have civil war, we're going to have
anarchy,
all those things we don't want. And it's important for us now, the people who've actually aware of this, to take the time to put an infrastructure in place that people will find useful, but which doesn't do anything more than it needs to. And that's the biggest thing. It's not having a standing government, it's having a system by which people can come together when they recognize a problem and solve that as a collective. I'm not thinking of putting this edifice in place which is going to be leering over people. I just want to know that if I notice a pothole in the road that needs fixing, that we've got some method of getting that done, because we all recognize as a society we don't want roads that are falling apart. And it's as simple as that. And that one of my friends from the American States Assembly, Gary Mead, says that is literally de jure. That's what it means. De facto is always there. De jure is of the day. That means when there's a problem, we solve it. Your shed's fallen over, right, let's fix it. Oh, that person's robbed something from you, right, let's go and sort that out. So-and-so's had a heart attack, let's deal with that. It's having the infrastructure to deal with the problems that we're going to face on a day-by-day basis.
Well, that's what this interim administration training is all about. I'm training those administrators to actually go in as volunteers to set the infrastructure up. And then once we send out these trained administrators, they will go out with the knowledge of the new system and our new natural law, because we're going back to natural law, and they will go out and they will develop this infrastructure. Now, yes, the monetary we're thinking of actually going back to, well, what is your time worth?
Rick, where have you been? I know you've been busy. And it's just like, I know I've listened to you before, and it's just like, I resonate to you. And hey, brother, thank you for your time.
That's okay. That's no problem. The other place you may have seen me, I'm not sure if you follow Hannah Maria on YouTube as well and on Facebook. She's living in Spain, but she's actually from Finland. She's another YouTube activist. She got me on her channel quite early on. So you might have heard me on there. I also did, I'm not sure if you know who Neil Sanders is. I did an interview with him as well.
I listen to so much, brother. I listen to so much, and I do so much research. It's just like it's like a bee's nest in my head, and it's hard, but I recognize voices, and I know that
it's very hard to switch it off, isn't it? Yeah. Once you start getting your head into it, because I've said this before, there's 1,500 years at least of fraud that I'm trying to unpick at the minute, and you can't trust the mainstream sources, because as much as they might tell you, they might tell you what happened, they might not tell you how it happened or why it happened or who was involved, or they'll put a different spin on it. And you've got to pay real close attention to little intricacies of words, because they'll play things off as being the same thing. The big one you've got to just figure out if in England is the difference between the crown and the monarch, because they're not the same thing. And in common language, the crown is used to, refer to the monarch, but it's not. It's a corporate entity of which the Queen is a figurehead that doesn't actually have any real power, and that's made up of basically a council of corporations which own the City of London. And that goes all the way back to the royal charters. You can actually go look through the list of royal charters. I've been doing this recently. Actually, probably still got the Wikipedia entry up on my phone, where I was going through and looking at all the various different companies that were given royal charters. What a royal charter does is it basically gives the company authority and monopoly over a given industry. So anybody who wants to operate in that business has to have approval from the company with the royal charter. And one of the first charters that was given, in fact, the first two royal charters that were given were to Oxford and Cambridge universities. So immediately the monarchy is there taking monopoly of the major educational institutions. That was around 1200, 1300, thereabouts. And then the first big company that actually gets a royal charter is the Saddlers Company. So that's like giving someone a monopoly on tires. Think about that. Like in a world where horses are the primary mode of transport, you've given one company monopoly on all the saddles.
Yes.
That gives you a real good idea of exactly how these companies were supposed to function from the very, very beginning. And from then you see a steady drip of different schools and companies getting charters for about 400 years thereabouts, until you get to the 1600s. And you should see the list for 1600s because you're getting 4 or 5 companies a year starting to get their own royal charters and getting monopolies over given industries. And this is where the Royal East India, the East India Company starts to pop up, and I think it's the West African Company as well. And this was corporatization of the military. These companies were going out with muskets and bayonets and cavalry and cannons. These weren't going out peacefully trading. When you look at these old films of the fights against the Zulus and stuff like that, what you're looking at is companies that are fighting. That's where the whole idea of a company and an army came from. It was literally a company, a corporate entity. And when you start to look in the corporate language, you see the mixture of this military language, and you've got officers in corporations, and this is the blending of the military and the corporate structure, which occurred, in the original days of empire. So it's fascinating stuff, and disturbing all at once, just as I'm going through it and trying to pull the various threads together. As when you read about British history, again, they'll try and keep everything as separate as possible. They won't tell you that while this was going on, X number of companies were being created over here, and the church was putting pressure over here. You're studying British history of the church, or you're studying British history of industry, or you're studying British history of monarchy. Very few people are bringing all of these threads together and actually looking at where all the influences was. I'm in the process now where I've just got a table and I'm going through all the dates from 1100, but a little before 1100 from the Doomsday Book. That's when we start to get any, sort of real solid, reliable records in this country. But I'm drawing up a timeline. I want to know who was on the throne when this happened, and I want to know, who was influencing them. Were they Puritans? Were they part of the crown? Were they part of, it's such a mess that you've got to be able to jump about between so many different subjects and read an article here, go back and read another article there, get halfway through and realize that you've then got to go and clarify your understanding elsewhere. It's required a fair bit of mental gymnastics and an awful lot of studying. Basically, if I'm not working or making food for the family or helping that sort of general day-to-day life stuff going on, then I'm reading, or I'm researching, or I'm writing posts for my blog, or just trying to get my head around how this has all happened, because I know as this gets more and more apparent, people are going to have more and more questions for me, and they're going to get more and more detailed, and they're going to put me under more and more pressure, and they're going to want to know that I've put the time in to actually figure out how this fraud has happened in excruciating detail. So it's a very, very big project, and I'm desperate to get a couple more Brits on side who are willing to put this level of detail in and come and help me clarify my understanding, because I'm not strong on history. It's something that I'm interested in, but my study has primarily been in sort of science and philosophy and ancient spirituality more than anything else. I just realized that looking around out there, there's someone needs to do this job, and I guess I'm the one who's got to do it for now.
Well, there
I
you
might
go.
not be the best qualified, but
If I have a quick,
someone's got to.
if I have a quick question for you, brother, like, you know, I've listened to you speak, and you're right out on the front lines of the chaos, the challenges that we all face. Are you safe? Like, you know, have you had any threats? Like, have you been, like, you know, like a lot of people that I come across, they have a lot of knowledge of what's going on, but they're on the fence because they're fearful of losing their job or whatever. You seem to be right out in the forefront, and what's your experiences with that?
So have I had kickback is basically what you're asking, aren't you?
Yeah,
If I've had any
yeah,
sort of pressure.
yeah.
I've had some personal kickback so far, because this is something that I've been reading and researching alternate knowledge for, oh God, since I was about 7. I'm not kidding. I've always felt that there was something going on, and it started off with UFOs and aliens when I was about 7 years old, and on all that sort of thing. But really seriously researching 20 years at least, in terms of, you know, deeper reading and things like that. Personal kickbacks, though, have happened recently, and that's when I've really started to stand behind what I believe is right. And it's been a really hard road. I'm not going to lie. This time last year, I was a swimming teacher, and I absolutely loved my job. I'd been doing it for 5 years, and this is the first time in my life that I had a job which I didn't hate getting up to do. I really loved my job. I was passionate about it, and, you know, felt like I was actually, for once in my life, doing something worthwhile. I wasn't working for a big corporation. I was self-employed, so I was my own boss. I felt like I had time to do what I needed to do. I was making enough money that I could start to save for buying a piece of land. My plan this time last year was to buy a bit of land in Wales and show people another way of living, to literally do it, to just say, look, I want as little to do with money as possible. It's all a scam, all a fraud. I want to be completely self-sufficient. I want off, and I want to show people that we can do it. So that was my plan. However, when this all kicked up, I was unable to work, obviously, and being self-employed, I don't get any support. And I was left in a position basically where we were able to come back in a limited capacity. Most of my venues hadn't come back. Most of them had stayed shut. But the one that was going to allow me to come back insisted on temperature checks for everybody who came through the front door. And I said no, because I broke down. I remember sobbing my heart out, like throwing my arms around my girlfriend, just burying my head in her shoulders. I was absolutely gutted, because I love that job. And I'm not the sort of person who doesn't like working. You know, when I don't have something to do, I get really anxious. So personal kickback was, you know, mainly due to me standing behind my morals. I've not had any pressure from any formal sources yet, or the only thing I have noticed is an interesting stream of Facebook requests, which seem to be trying to catfish the hell out of me. But besides that, I've not actually had any solid kickback from anything. I believe my YouTube channel is being shadow banned, as are my Facebook pages, because most of my friends don't get to see anything that I put up on there. You know, no matter how hard I share the shit out of stuff, it just never gets any traction. It takes 3 or 4 people to share things for it to even start showing up on anyone's timeline. So I'm pretty sure I'm being shadow banned in that sense. But regarding direct kickback, no, I've not had any threats or anything like that.
That's good. That's good.
And from what I'm starting to understand, if we get this right, if we get this right, because of their twisted morality, and when I say their, I'm talking about the parasites, whomever we believe they ultimately are. There are a group of parasites that are at the heart of this.
Agreed.
They have a morality. They have a morality that's twisted as all hell. And that's how we're able to get out, because they have to tell us what they're doing to us. They have to, because that's how they justify it to themselves. If we tell them what we're doing, if we tell them very openly what we're doing and they still go along with it, then we are, not as culpable anymore. And that's why there's ways out of it. And there's a phrase amongst the Masons that you might like the reference here, Scott. Stand on your square. The idea being that if you stand in your knowledge and that knowledge is truthful, that you can't be touched. So if we do this right, I don't think that they can touch us. And I think the reason that people before have had stuff done to them in more open ways, I'm not saying they won't try and shut us down somehow, but I think the reason that people who've gone before us have suffered from death threats and sometimes even being suicided, etc., is because they weren't quite on the square. They had it mostly right, but there was a toe or two that were just outside, and because there was a toe or two outside, the parasites felt like they could do something because they weren't standing entirely on the square. Does that make sense?
It does, brother. It does.
Because their morality is there, and it's very, very open. If you are willing to, consider occult influences here, and whether you believe in Satanism or not is irrelevant. These people quite clearly do. It's very evident when you look at the way they behave. Whether you believe in it or not, these people do. When you understand how their morality works, what do they say? If they're going to behave like sheep, then we'll treat them like sheep. If you want to behave like cattle, then you will be eaten by wolves. It's as simple as that. That's the law of the universe. Mm-hmm. So you got to stop behaving like cattle, and then they can't treat you like cattle, because that's part of their scam. They have to tell you what they're doing, and they have to put it in writing, and they have to have paperwork for it. And once you know the way to counter that and get out and stand on your square and stand in that sovereign light and be, honest and truthful about it, then they can't actually touch you, because that's part of their moral code.
Mm-hmm. Wow, this is so interesting. So I wanted to mention just this before we got into this last little discussion. So would you agree with the information that I've received? So we have the City of London, that basically is the globalist financial institution. We have the Vatican, which basically is the government, religion, blah, blah, blah. And Washington, D.C., the military. Would you agree that those are the three powers that are basically what we're fighting?
Yeah, that's the unholy trinity. That's the unholy trinity of domination. And you can see this just without even considering those three entities. Let's look at the way that people can wield power over you. There's three ways they can do it. They can wield it by force, by physical force. They can wield power over you. Okay, is it a moral thing to do? No, it's not. But there is the idea of force in nature. That is one way that an entity can choose to dominate another against its will, by force. The other way is by finance. You can, bankrupt somebody. If your financial power is greater than theirs, then you have the ability to manipulate the market forces in such a way that you can then influence nations. I can't remember who it was. Give me control of a nation's money and I control the nation. It's as simple as that. That's the second, pillar of financial power. And the third one is religion. Because people have had their connection, their direct connection to God removed via, Christianity and other mainstream religions. People say, the only way you can find your way to the Lord is through Jesus and through the church, but that's not what Jesus said. Jesus said you can find the Lord through yourself because you are a child. He never said I am specifically a child of God. He said I am, but so are you. You are the child of God the same as I am. So those are the three ways that we've been, manipulated. We've been manipulated by force, we've been manipulated by finances, and we've been manipulated by our detachment from religion and our need to seek external gratification for our religious understanding of the world and our spiritual health, whereby we can actually find God through ourselves. We don't need someone to interpret a Bible for us. The evidence of the creator is about all the time the fact that you exist as a living, breathing individual that is able to move of its own accord in the material universe is proof that something created you. Now, whether you want to call that science and the law of the universe and think about it in purely right, left brain mathematical terms is fine, but that's still your creator. The forces of nature are your creator in that sense. Something still created you. Whether you want to personify that as a bearded man in the sky, that's up to you. But everyone needs to come to this recognition that, there is something that is a creator, whether that's the scientific laws of the universe in a purely left brain manner and mathematics, or whether there's something deeper to that in a right brain, creative, more traditionally spiritual aspect is again up to you. But we have to all recognize that. So yeah, there's definitely those three pillars of power without a shadow of a doubt. And they are manifest in the physical world by the Vatican, and Mecca as well. Mecca is also a parallel in the Eastern world. And again, I think you'll also, if we look in the Eastern world and the other side of the coin, you will find that they also have their own financial center, and they also have their own military power, which I believe is China, for the other half.
So I usually, when I talk on Zooms, and sometimes I get some people to disagree with me. One, I'll admit that the Bible has been corrupted, and it's been rewritten and rewritten, and the original Bible is long gone. When I look back at history, and more so just let's say the history of de facto Canada and what built this nation, I would say would have been Christian values and people going to church and having their creator and all that. And I believe what happened was the evils that we talk about corrupted the churches. They infiltrated them with fraudsters and pedophiles, and they divided the people away from those churches and all that. And we find ourselves now in 2021 where, we don't go and we don't congregate, we don't listen to good words, we don't talk about our community events and what's going on, within our communities and all that. We've been so divided. And I think that's why we find ourselves in the reality of what's coming and what is amongst us right now, is because we're divided that. And I'm not a religious person. I don't believe in going to church. I believe in my creator, right? And all that. But it's just when we look at what the times that we're living in today, and we see what's upon our TVs, the programming machines, the filth, the pornograph, the filth, it's just enormous. And I believe it's because we were divided away from, in whether it's right or wrong, but we used to have a faith, and we used to on Sundays congregate, go listen to some good words and how to treat one another, and have a meal afterwards and conversation with your community and all that. And we've been divided in so far away that we've lost our way. And this is why, everyone is stuck in front of their programming machines, their TVs and all this. And it's what the society that I look at today, it's a mess. It is a mess. And I ask myself, how do we get to this point? Now, I know even that the churches, and even in the 1800s, 1900s, they were corrupted, but there was still a base there that taught you right from wrong, how to treat one another, bring no harm to another, help one another. I remember, and especially small communities and farming communities, they worked if there was a farmer who had got hurt or he couldn't get his crops off, the community got together and they would help and they'd get the crops off, and we bartered and we traded, right? That's how a lot of people, and when we talk about the financial and causing financial difficulty, we look at the Great Depression, right? That was globalist banker initiated, and all you had to do to solve that problem would have been trade and barter, right? And we could go back, and you mentioned going to Wales or whatever, and almost enact that type of a system where you could trade and barter. You don't need that monetary, that fiat cash system. That's the root of all evil. We could survive the sovereign man and women just with trade and barter.
Mhm.
What are
I
your
think
thoughts on that, brother?
trade, I think facilitated trade. There's definitely, I definitely see the benefits of barter, for sure. There are, unfortunately, I think, limitations to this. I've discussed this in one of my YouTube videos before. And the problem with the barter system is that you can only then directly trade really with someone who needs the product that you've got. If you've got a whole bunch of carrots and that person doesn't need carrots, then if they've got a service that you need and you've got a service that they don't need, then we come
you're out
into
of luck.
issues.
Yes.
Then you're out of luck. So that there has to be some kind of medium of exchange, but that medium of exchange has to, it's got to first of all facilitate, this energetic exchange. Because as far as I'm concerned, any trade is an energetic exchange. Whether this is, me taking my time now to speak to you guys and show you my perspective, and you guys just taking the time to listen and explore it with me, that's an energetic trade that's going on here. The medium we're using here is time. We're giving equal amounts of time, and that's what makes this trade equitable. Okay. Perfect. And that is what I think we have to use as the basis for any sort of lawful currency. And I'm 100%, really, really set on this at the minute. I'm prepared to hear arguments against it, but I've not heard a good one so far. If we base our currency on time, then what's happening there is our currency is reflecting the base values of our society. Because our society that we're building accepts that everybody, when fully actualized and looked after, is able to contribute to the community equally using their own unique skill sets. Yeah. That means my time is worth as much as yours. Okay. So we build our whole trading system on a time-based currency. And this is where the barter starts to come in, because when we introduce the idea of an hour as a medium, as a measure of currency, an hour of my time is an hour of your time. Now we say, what is that hour worth in product? How many carrots does an hour of my time buy me? The beauty of this is human beings love to optimize things. We love to make things more efficient. We like doing it so much, okay, that video game designers have to make it hard for people to optimize. Otherwise, they optimize the fun out of the game, okay? I'm not kidding you. This is something that's known in the video game industry. We have to make it hard to optimize, because if we make it too easy, they'll just optimize the shit out of the game and there'll be no fun left in it, because that's what human beings do. We like to make things faster, better, bigger, stronger. We like to improve things. So that means the farmer who's able to give you 20 carrots for your hour is going to sell more of his carrots than the farmer who can only give you 10. And people are very quickly going to cotton onto this method that the 20 carrot farmer is doing. And this now scales to every industry. And you put an hour away now that only buys you 10 carrots. In 10 years' time, because of improvements in efficiency, you might get 100 carrots for that. And now you've got a currency that naturally deflates. Have you ever heard of a currency that deflates, i.e. grows in value over time by a natural function of what it is? Time-based currency does that. Because people want things, because as technology improves, we get more efficient. And that single hour of energy input will buy you more in the future as we get better at doing what we do. because that's what human beings, when they do what they love, they want to get better at it. They want to do things faster. They want to do it better. They want to do it bigger. They want to do it more efficiently.
So if I could say, if I understand correctly, so with what you're talking about, as we evolve and we get more efficient, then we, the sovereign men and women, will work less and enjoy life more, but also have all the fruits of, like,
Yes.
Yes,
Wow.
that's exactly it. And
Amazing.
people get unstuck on this, because when I say to people that we can operate a system on this, well, what if there's not enough work for everybody? What do you mean there's not enough work for everybody? Well, then do less work. Why are you working 40-hour weeks when there's people out of work who could do half of that work for you? Are you kidding me? This is about filling people's time with monotony. This is not about producing a functional society. This is about keeping people tired enough that all they want to do is go home and switch on the TV and go, and not think about the fact that they're actually in a box.
Yes.
And that they're living with a ball and chain around their leg every single day.
100%.
Was it,
100%.
Didn't Jack, what's his name, of the Jack Fresco of the Venus Project, didn't he say something like 3 hours a week is about what we'd need, really? If society actually optimized itself, everyone would really need to input about 3 hours of useful work to the community per week for us to all live in, abundance. 3 hours.
That's a lot less than what I've heard before, but that's very interesting. But truthfully, and I agree 100%. And I say all the time that our Creator did not mean us to be working from the age of when you get out of school, which we're going to change that until you're 65, and then enjoy a few years of retirement. We should be working much less and enjoying life more. That's what our Creator meant for us. But we've been enslaved by the corporations, the globalists, et cetera, to be tax slaves and to work ourselves as slaves to our death, enjoying very little of life. And this is a system that we have to change.
Yeah, for sure. And I honestly think that's the root of a lot of the depression in the world. A lot of the depression that people feel is what I call a perfectly natural reaction to a fucking insane society. Because a lot of people who are depressed, and the reason they think there's something wrong with them is because they've got a good job. They've got a family, they've got a house, they've got a nice car, and they still go home and they're miserable every single night. And they're looking at it like, I should be happy. Society tells me I should be happy because I can afford to buy things that I think I want. And I've got a good job, and I've got this house, and I've got this. Why am I not happy? And instead of looking at society and saying what's wrong with society, that I can do everything right and still be miserable, they look inside at themselves and they think there's something wrong with them when there's nothing wrong with them.
There, Rick? The problem is you have a house, you have a family, you have a car, but you go to work every day and you don't get to enjoy your house, your family, and your car.
Exactly. It becomes this cyclic
100%.
thing, doesn't it? The
100%.
best way I've heard it described, you go to work every day in a car that you pay for with the job that you pay for the car to go to the job, to leave the house that you pay for empty all day. Like it's insane. It's utterly insane.
Start work from home. Minimum. No, I understand your point of view, and I do agree that you need money. We cannot barter all the time. No, probably this is not, probably could be a solution for the beginning if we cannot come with forward with a monetary system in time, and we still need to pass in the other system. But it's not a solution for a long time. I know that, and we still need money for sure, and we still need a value that to know. The value that everything has on this market. So we still need a market until we will be able to work for the society and to reject the money that everything will be provided depending what we need, and we will be able to choose and to consume what we need. but in exchange, we are working for the society, and then we do not use a monetary system, not at all. So this is not a barter system. This is something very different, that you are working because you understand that you have to work for your society, then your society, but a total one, will provide everything that needs for everyone, that everyone can go somewhere and can take everything that they need, and will be nothing in exchange. So we are still not there. We want to be, but until we'll be there, we will still need a monetary system in place. And it's true, because I cannot have everything, and I cannot find everything on the market that I want to have. And probably the other one do not need what I have to give to him. So in exchange, so for sure, this is not working for a long time, and probably I hope that we'll be not on this situation. We can develop our monetary system. At this time, they try to develop an international monetary system that is based on the quantum physics. And my question all the time was how the states or the country, how they can control this monetary system, who control the monetary system. And it's like, okay, so it doesn't matter if it is extremely intelligent, it's when this monetary system is still controlled international, you have no power above the monetary system, but you function like a country. When you bring your sovereignty in a country, you are above the constitution, and the monetary system is inside of the constitution. So you are above the monetary system that practically run in your country. So by there, when they bring everything to the international level, I understand that they are using the quantum physics, but you can also use to the national level the quantum physics. So this is nothing. You can develop, doesn't matter what you want. But they start right now to say, we have already won. And I start to think, my first thinking, it was who controlled that. And I said, even that if we can accept that, but if something happens, we can switch to our own monetary system and we can start anytime. But in order to not have any kind of surprise, probably it is better to start with our monetary system, but already one is already developed. So we have this challenge to understand and to accept yes or no. So you are from England. What is your opinion?
I think that there's definitely going to be a moment where the two systems are going to be running side by side, for sure. The fiat system is going to be next to our own lawful currency, and people using lawful currency will use it when they're trading with other people who are lawful. But there will be times when we need to get stuff from, outside our system. And in that case, we will have to use fiat currency because they're not going to accept our lawful hours or, whatever currency we choose. So, yeah, I think they're going to work side by side. And we definitely need to have our own system in place for if they try and put some credit system in or whatever, social credit score to freeze our accounts or whatever, that we've still got, a way of trading amongst us. So.
Would you accept something that it's international control?
Would I accept something in international control? No, I think it needs to be in communities. I think it needs to be issued by the people who are actually doing the work. And this is why I like the idea of time-based currency, because you could literally have them as checks that people can, put their, actual name, their thumbprint on, and, there's a check. I've just done an hour's worth of work. You just did an hour's worth of work. That's me crediting you for it. I'm willing to take that hour back and offer you an hour of work whenever you need it. Or if anybody needs it, they can come and give me that and I'll provide service. It's really quite simple. Unfortunately, I'm running out of time and I'm running out of battery on my phone. So I'm going to have to call it an evening here. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you guys. Thank you very much.
Well.
For allowing me to speak to you. Do you mind if I take a moment to plug my platform?
No,
I already did.
Please do. And brother, would you please come back and enlighten us with your words again?
I will
Please.
definitely come back. It's been an absolute
Please.
pleasure. I've really enjoyed myself. Thank you very much, Scott.
Oh,
You can find
brother.
me. You can find me at Fanfare for the Conscious .wordpress.com. That's a blog that I've just started. I also run the Fanfare for the Conscious YouTube channels, and you can also find them on BitChute and Brand YouTube as well. Also, if you want to talk to me and any of my friends who are doing the same thing, you can find me at lawfulbank.com. That'd be amazing. It's
Can
been
you
really
put
great
that
talking
in
to you. Thank
chat?
you.
If you go to the bottom of the screen, there's a chat icon. If you could put those links in there, that we'd really appreciate it.
I will pop them in there for you now. I'm going to have to, if I get cut off in the meantime, my apologies. I will make sure that I drop them next time I come across, because I've got very, very little battery left. I'll try and do it now before I go, but thank you very much for your time, guys.
Oh, thank you for your time, brother. Thank you for your time.
Right, I'll see if I can put these in for you now.
Like I always